It's time for another edition of the Cowboys Legend Show as we are here at the Cowboys Club overlooking the practice field here at Ford Center at the Star in Frisco, where we've got some youth league teams occupying space down there.
Child teams. I'm big enough to play with them.
There's going to be high school football.
You're not big enough.
All right, we're going to start already. I can see that.
High school football Thursday, Friday, and Saturday this week here at Ford Center. It's playoff time in Texas, and the Cowboys got some work to do to make it playoff time as far as the NFL team is concerned. Bill Jones with Mickey Spagnola, and our Legends guest this week is the great Darren Woodson. Hello, Woody. How you doing?
I'm doing great, man. Thanks for having me. It's been a while.
Another Ring of Honor member.
That's another Ring of Honor member. Mickey, he's knocking himself out this year with Ring of Honor members.
You know, Mick doesn't give you any choice, though. Mick just tells you how it's going to be. Yeah, you're going to be there Wednesday at 7 o'clock. Yes, sir, Mick.
You just pick a date. Go ahead. Yeah. And I'm glad he picked this one.
I will say this. Woody is the most dapperly attired of our guests so far this year. You can tell he has such a lucrative career in television.
No,
actually, listen to this.
No, this has nothing to do with you two. Okay. Trust me, I came from another event with NTT Data, which is a client of mine in the business world, and I came dressed from there to here. Trust me, I'd probably be wearing some shorts and T-shirts if it was about for Mick. So
I thought he was doing TV, and he's got a little remote spot at his house. You know, he didn't have time to change.
No. I came from another event, man.
Well, let's start with the TV career. How's that going?
It's going great, man. A lot going on in the world of sports, and most of it's political, as you well know. When I signed up at ESPN, I always felt like it was, we were going to talk X's and O's and play to my strengths, which were things that go on the football field and breaking down offenses and defenses. But now it's a little bit of everything. I'm more of an attorney now.
Tell me about it.
Following the Zeke cases made me some type of attorney. I don't know which kind, but not only that, but on the medical side, there's so many things going on outside of the actual X's and O's of the game. So, we have to become more well-rounded in talking sports.
You can even throw in Jerry in the league.
Jerry in the league, right? Yes.
I'm sure they ask you about that a lot.
And it comes down to pipe. And look, I have to be honest with you. I've known Jerry since '92. Came in as a young rookie, and have really gotten to know the Jones family as a whole. Charlotte is a superstar, of course, but the entire family as a whole. So it's hard for me to be critical because I know the man's heart. Yeah. I know his passion. I know what he does. What the Jones family does in the community. I've been a part of that. Up in the Northeast, a lot of people like to take shots that don't know Jerry and the Jones family. Yeah. So sometimes I'm, they call me the great attorney, the defense attorney of his. Yeah. So sometimes I'm in the defense mode, but there's a lot going on in the league right now. I think Jerry's been a staple in this league because he has a gold jacket because of the leadership that he's provided, to the NFL. But a lot of people are taking shots right now.
So you think they're going to kick him out of the league?
No. Please. First time I heard that, I could not believe the fact that even came out of someone's mouth. Jerry's not going anywhere. And when Jerry's not here, it'll be Steven. The Dallas Cowboys will be forever a part of the Jones family.
Because they're raising grandchildren now.
That's right.
Yeah. When somebody told me that, they're going to kick him out of the league, force him to sell, I said, okay, fine, he'll take the money and buy the league.
Exactly.
And that report came out on Monday, and now I see the Wall Street Journal's picking up. It's unbelievable that there's even talk along those lines. And Jerry addressed it on his radio show yesterday morning. And the news today is Ezekiel Elliott has decided to go ahead and drop his appeal, so he'll be out the full 6 weeks, and he won't play in a Cowboys game until Christmas Eve against the Seattle Seahawks, and Cowboy fans just hope that means something by then.
If they take care of business, maybe it's a Christmas present, right?
Yep, that's right.
The Cowboys need to take care of business this week.
Right.
Let's just be honest with them. They can't look forward to 6 weeks from now when Zeke comes back. In order to get to where the goal is, and that is to get into the playoffs, it starts this week all over again. And you never can. As a football player or as an organization, you can never look past the next week. And I always take it from, there's a lot of things I've learned from being up at ESPN and being in the Northeast and being around guys like Teddy Bruschi, who play with the New England Patriots, is, they take one game at a time. There's nothing else going on in the world but the next game. And that's how the Cowboys have to look at the Philadelphia Eagles this week. There's nothing else going on in the world. I don't care if it's Zeke. I don't care if it's Jerry's, the news with Jerry. It's about the Eagles stopping Carson Wentz and putting points on the board.
This sort of reminds me of this position they're in. I don't know if they're good enough the year before you got here.
Yeah.
In '91 when the Cowboys were sitting there at 6-5, and it was like, well, what's going to happen? What are they going to do? And they had to go to Washington and play what turned out to be the Super Bowl champions that year, and they needed to win. If you were going to do anything that year, they needed to win, and that started the 5-game winning streak without Troy Aikman because he got hurt at the beginning of the third quarter.
What'd Jimmy do on the second half kickoff?
You want to get the most out of your advertising dollars, which is why the marketing platform of choice, Spectrum News, is proud to present the creative services of Colonel. Colonel is an award-winning creative network from writers to animators who believe in the power and value of ideas. Ideas with the power to grow your brand, to pop, just like the Colonel. We develop creative solutions that keep your brand's message consistent, on point and memorable throughout the lifetime of your creative campaign across every screen. We believe in the hard work and nurturing it takes to grow brands and businesses. And combined with Colonel's creativity and strategy, the results for you will be a campaign that is personal, original, and persuasive. So, say hello to Colonel, and let's grow your brand.
They played extremely well, but the Cowboys feel like, if I'm with this Cowboys football team, you played them twice last year, you beat them twice. You manhandled them, at least one of those in one of those.
The one time, and then they punted the last game. Remember,
exactly,
because it didn't matter.
So I look at this whole this matchup, and the Cowboys should have confidence going into this game. I know they have some injuries. I know they're not going to have Zeke, but at home they need to build that confidence during the week of practice to say, look, we're going to take care of our business Sunday, give the Eagles that loss, and then start all over again.
And being the leader that he is, I thought Dak Prescott did a good job setting the tone for the league, for the week. He did some interviews yesterday, and he basically said that this is a must-win game. Now, he says that every game is a must-win game, but he set the tone for the week for his teammates that, hey, this is a must-win game. We have to have this one if we're going to accomplish our goals this season. The first goal is to win the division, so they got to take care of business on Sunday night against the Eagles.
And he was brutally honest after the Falcons game, too, when he said, well, we got our arses kicked,
they did.
And we better get better.
Yeah, and, teams have been there. I mean, I remember being a Super Bowl championship football team and losing to opponents that, you felt like you should win. In game, and this past week game, you're playing against a good Atlanta Falcons team. Let's not, discredit Atlanta. They are the defending NFC champions from last year. But, I remember being in situations on a Super Bowl caliber football team and getting in '92, we ended up losing. Los Angeles Rams rolled into Dallas.
Right. Beat you here, right?
Beat us
Texas
here
Stadium.
on our home. Exactly. They were a 3-13 team, something like that. I mean, and we were one of those wins that they had as far as 3 wins. So. I mean, it happens in this league. You have to be ultimately all the way focused from top to bottom, and it starts with your leaders. Dak has to be realistic about the opportunity and having those conversations with guys on the opposite side of the ball. Lando Skandrick or whoever, Sean Lee, even though he's not playing, he's going to have to stand up this week and say, hey, look, we need to rally behind each other, figure out a way to win this football game because this is the next game.
And the 93 season, when Emmett's got a contract holdout to start the year, you start 0-2, so you're playing from behind as the season began. Then you got the Leon Lett game on Thanksgiving Day, and then the sky is falling at that point. Mm-hmm. I think that's another great example of you had to have the will as a team to be able to focus on the task at hand and have a stretch run to make it to the playoffs.
And it was a confidence. You had to have a confidence. And we had guys like Michael Irvin and Troy Aikman and Charles Haley. I mean, the confidence did not lack in our locker room. And think about that.
Okay, so how much does Zeke bring to this team? He kind of has that. He kind of brings that same confidence, and without him here.
Well, Zeke brings a different perspective. I think the one thing in my time of being around this team is when he and Dak came in the last year, is there's a certain swagger about those two. They bring a certain confidence with that team, and that started. The comparison I can make was easily Michael Irvin. There was something. It was about the will to win and never backing down, and having that attitude going into the week of practice. And we would fight each other. Mick, you were there. We would fight defensively and offensively. We'd fight during the week of practice, and Sundays it was like, hey, this is a piece of cake. But that's the will you have to have as far as leadership. And it starts, again, Dak Witten is another one. I mean, there's some guys on this football team that feel like, they are the alpha dog, and they have to have that alpha dog mentality, but it starts during the week of practice. I mean, you have to focus. You don't win the game on Sunday. And I've said this for years. I've never won a game, came out on Sunday and said, you know what? We're just going to roll out and win this game on Sunday. Because the game is won during the week on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. That's when you win the game, when everyone is studying and ready for this game.
What was surprising about those two, and maybe it shouldn't have been, they weren't surprised by anything that happened last year. They thought that's what was supposed to happen, right?
Because that's what happened in college.
Zeke wasn't used to losing, right? He wasn't used to. Dak thought you're supposed to win every game.
Yeah, and that's a great mentality to have. Right? That's a great mentality to have. I mean, realistically,
right?
It does not work. It doesn't work that way in the league, but I mean that's a great attitude to have coming into the league. Is you don't accept failure. You just don't accept it. And in this league, this is not like baseball and basketball, especially in baseball. There are 100
There's always tomorrow.
1,015 games. I mean, you have these ups and downs. And in the NFL, you have 16 games to prepare for. And they normally happen on Sundays and Thursdays. You probably have 2 games on Thursday throughout the year. But most of the time, it's a Sunday game that you have to be ready and prepared for. And that's it. That's it. I mean, and your entire focus is on that game. From what do they practice now? Mondays, Tuesdays,
Wednesday, Thursday, Friday.
Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. I mean, that's your entire focus. And that's the hardest thing for me was when I was a player, it was getting over the losses. That was the hardest thing for me. I mean, and Mick, we've known each other for a long time. I was the sorest of sore losers. And it took me at least a day, 2 days maybe, and it usually happened like on Wednesday's practice for me to finally get it out of my system after I hit somebody on Wednesday's practice, and I was like, okay, I'm over it.
So y'all hit each other in practice back then?
Oh, we used to bang a little bit in practice. That's right.
You tackle,
they don't bang anymore. That's right. But that's the key is just that you have to find a way to get over and move to the next one, and your entire focus has to be on the next game. And to me, it's if you're a defensive player for this football team, it's got to be the focus has to be Carson Wentz.
And that's what I always laugh about when we get into situations like this and people go, this is a must-win or that's a must-win. No, you only got 16.
You only got 16.
Every one of them's a must-win.
Yeah.
All right, we're just getting started here with Darren Woodson on the Cowboys Legends Show. Much to get into when we continue, including a little reunion going on this weekend. More in a moment.
It's a touchdown. It's a touchdown. Oh, Big Ben struck midnight.
To the SWBC Mortgage Dallas Cowboys Legends Show. Broadcasting live from the Cowboys Club at the Star in Frisco.
SWBC Mortgage for more than 40 years. SWBC has been helping people, companies, and financial institutions prepare to win in Texas and across the country. Visit SWBC.com to learn more. This is the Cowboys Legends Show. Bill Jones with Mickey Spagnola and our very special guest this week, Cowboys Ring of Honor member Darren Woodson. We've got Smacker Miles here as well with a wireless microphone. Hello, Smacker. How you doing?
Hey, I'm good. How are you?
Doing very well. So if you have got a question for Darren Woodson, find Smacker and you can ask and be on the air here. And Darren, by the way, Smacker is the daughter of Les Miles, a former LSU head coach.
Yeah.
Swimmer at the University of Texas.
Yeah.
And does a great job on the Cowboys Legends Show and doing other stuff for Cowboys TV as well, right, Mickey?
We don't just give anybody a wireless mic to walk around.
That's exactly right. That's right. All right, there's quite a little get-together going on this weekend. In fact, Mickey, first off, talk about what's in the atrium area here at the Star.
Yeah, the atrium area at the front entrance of the Star for this week, since this ceremony is going to go on at halftime of this Sunday night's game. They have Jerry Jones' Hall of Fame bust, kind of on a little pedestal. And
his actual Hall of Fame bust.
They tell me it was the actual Hall of Fame bust that's here for the week because of the presentation of the Hall of Fame ring. I think they call it the Ring of Excellence. And so, if anybody comes in and takes a tour, you take a picture next to the bus. You don't have to go.
Featured attraction right by the Lombardi trophies there.
Don't have to go all the way to Canton, Ohio. And now we need to work to get this guy a bus, too.
That's exactly right. Darren Woodson definitely needs one. Leading tackler in Cowboys history. And a reunion this weekend on Sunday as well. There'll be a pregame ceremony, which, by the way, you'll be able to watch on DallasCowboys.com. The halftime ceremony will also be streamed on DallasCowboys.com. I was talking to Randy White. He's going to be a part of it. He'll be wearing his gold jacket, and he's getting a Super Bowl ring as well. He went in with Tony Dorsett in 1994, and as he put it, his Hall of Fame ring looks like his class ring from the University of Maryland.
Or probably from high school.
Well, about 3 years ago, the Hall of Fame, they decided to go ahead and give big old Super Bowl size rings for all the Hall of Fame guys, and Randy's going to get his on Sunday.
So a bunch of them, the rest of them that can be there are going to get theirs also.
That's right. Yeah. So, but a little reunion going on, that 25-year reunion of the 92 Super Bowl champs.
Yeah, well, it's always great to see, guys, and things change over the years.
Of course, you had one in February, too.
Yeah, we did. And we don't, we're not hesitant on talking trash about each other and what we look like nowadays. But, it's always great to be around guys you play with, and especially those Super Bowl teams, because it becomes a fraternity. You've gone through so much as a team, and you're reminded of the good and the bad and all the things you've gone through. But it's an honor to be a part of those 92, 93, 95 football teams, man, because you just never forget those great memories that you had. And most of the memories aren't so much of what took place on the field, the wins and losses. It's the camaraderie. It's what we built in the locker room, and it's the trash talking and getting to know each other and having the families over to eat and our kids getting to know each other. That's what you remember about, those teams, and half our conversations are about our kids. What are your kids doing now? What grades?
Which 25 years ago, exactly. I don't know if that was the conversation outside the locker room.
No, back then, don't bring up old stuff, man.
Okay.
Don't bring up old stuff.
Well, since you brought it up, what's your kids doing now?
What are my kids doing now? A little bit of a lot. I have two. My oldest is in California. He's a sound audio engineer, and he's all, put it this way. I'm so proud of him. He's been off the reservation for 3 years.
There you go.
He's off the Woodson reservation.
Taking
on
care
his
of
own.
himself.
On his own. There's no checks being cut from Dad.
That is an accomplishment.
My daughter's at UTA at 20 years old. I have a 17-year-old boy who plays baseball at Jesuit, has verbally committed to Texas.
Wow.
As a baseball player. And then I have an 18-month-old boy. I started all over again.
Wow. Where's he committed
to? He's going to be a 3 technique. Yeah. He's a big boy now.
Oh, yeah?
Oh, yeah. He's a slanted nose, man. I'm telling you, he's a big kid.
How'd that happen?
No, his mama, man. It's
she's not big.
Man. No, it's from their family.
Oh, okay.
It's got to be. No, I'm just joking. I don't want that to leave here.
Right? Yeah.
I'm just joking.
Yeah, this is going out on the air. Or
just the Dallas Cowboys radio network and live on DallasCowboys.com.
And by the way, at Jesuit College Prep here in Dallas, okay, your son plays baseball.
Yeah.
Daryl Johnston's son is a lacrosse player. He just signed to play at the University of Michigan.
Yep.
And then Emmett's son, E.J. Smith, is a sophomore running back.
Very good running back.
Leads the Metroplex in touchdowns in Class 6A.
Mm-hmm.
So there's quite a little Cowboy heritage there.
And you know where it starts from, right? From Roger Staubach, and his son Jeff Staubach went to Jesuit, and
he was quite a baseball player himself.
And he's the reason why my son is started over at Jesuit. He and Daryl Johnston both, Jeff Staubach, Roger, and Daryl Johnston told me my son was going to go to Jesuit when he got that age, and that's where he is now. So
and Moose told me today that Tim Brown's kids are going to go to Jesuit starting next year.
Yeah.
So,
well, they got a little something going on.
They should be winning. Jeans like that over there.
It's not going that far.
No, too far.
Not go that far.
And
a matter of fact, state in baseball, didn't they? A couple of years ago.
Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah, they'll be back in the mix somewhere.
Yeah.
So he mentioned Roger, and why don't you tell us what your new venture is?
Well, I'm in the corporate real estate game, and it's the company's called ESRP, and I am we're on the retail. I'm not so much on the retail, but the office and industrial space, and I got involved about 6 months ago, and Roger played a big role of that. Emmett played a big role in my transition into the real estate game. But it's been something that I've always had. I've always been an investor, but never really partook in the day-to-day operations. And I ended up getting my license about a year ago, and it's been fun.
So you like to have to study like you were in school to pass a test?
You know what, man? I played in 3 Super Bowls. I was the biggest coward on test day for my real estate exam. I'm serious. I mean, I knew I wasn't going to pass. I'm serious. I had no confidence going into it. I studied as hard as I possibly could, but going into the exam, I felt like, okay, I think I'm ready. And then I got the first 3 questions on the exam, and I said, I'm done. It's over with. and then I don't know how I passed it. End up passing it, but it was a stressful event, but it's been a great transition, and I've had great mentors along the way.
How'd you get the bug? What made you decide you wanted to get into it?
I've always felt like, I've helped a lot of folks in the real estate game. I won't mention a lot of names, but I've helped through relationships in years past, and I've been told by my agent George Bass, who's a CFO of a company called Weber & Company, who does some development, that this is the industry I should have been in a long time ago and follow Roger's lead in doing the commercial real estate game. So, I've always been a people's person. I've always felt like I've felt good about talking to people and being in one-on-one situations or in group situations. So, this part of it, commercial real estate, is part of that. It's about building relationships, and I feel I'm pretty good at that.
Now, is this going to get in the way of this TV career you got going?
No.
Do both?
No, we do both, man. Hey, I get up early in the morning. Things have not changed from my days playing with the Cowboys. And actually, me getting up early in the morning and preparing for my day started in college with Lovie Smith, who used to make me get up at 5 a.m. every day as a college student.
5 a.m.
5 a.m. I'd have to get up, and he'd have everyone that was a linebacker, defensive back that he coached would have to be in study hall, even as juniors and seniors. We'd have to get there at 5:30 a.m. and we'd watch, and we would do our studies or whatnot, and then go on about the rest of the day. So I've carried that on throughout my NFL career. Get up early in the morning, get over there early, watch film, do whatever, prepare for the rest of the day. And I'm doing the same thing now.
There's a reason why they do that in college at 5:30 a.m.
Because you don't sleep.
so you're not out at 1:30 a.m.
Yeah, but a lot of guys did just the opposite. They just didn't sleep. They just stayed up the whole time. I figured it out early on.
So you probably thought, okay, I'm in the NFL. I'm going to get. I can sleep, right? And then you have to start showing up for Avezzano's special teams meeting.
That's another one. I mean, I was prepared now, because Avezzano, it was a life-changing experience for most guys that came in the league. I'm serious. I mean, when I first came in the league, there were a lot of guys that got cut because they couldn't make Joe Avezzano's meeting on time. And Joe Avezzano's meeting started not at 8 o'clock. It started at 7:45 a.m. It started like when Joe walked in the door is when the meeting started. So,
you needed to be there.
You needed to be there. It didn't matter if it was 7:45 or 8 o'clock. You needed to be there when Joe got there. So I was well prepared for that coming out of college. Didn't take me long to figure it out. But there were a lot of guys that didn't figure it out and found theirs. And Joe had so much pull back then, as you well know, that, he'd just walk up to Jimmy and say, this guy, he's late all the time. Jimmy would cut him on the spot.
So it worked. Did guys they lock the door to that team meeting room and have to knock?
This is the deal. The door was never locked. So the meeting was, say the meeting started it was supposed to start at 8 o'clock. Joe shows up at 7:50. Well, the meeting starts, right? The fear was, and I'd see guys walk all the time, that guys knew that they were late and they would stand by because he'd leave the door open. And guys knew they were late. They'd walk in at 7:52 and the meeting had already started. They would not walk in that meeting.
They stand out in the hallway?
Absolutely.
Scared. Could they hear?
Because what happens if you walk through the door, Avezzano would go all the way in on you.
Go all Italian.
all Italian on you. He'd go all the way, cuss you out, say whatever. So most guys just wanted to avoid the embarrassment and just said, forget it. I'll just take it.
Take the fine or whatever.
Fine, yeah.
Joe.
It's tough, man.
Darren Woodson is our guest here on the Cowboys Legends Show from the Cowboys Club at the Star in Frisco, and we continue in just a moment.
Visit TexasMahindraDealers.com.
It's a touchdown. It's a touchdown. Oh, Big Ben struck midnight.
To the SWBC Mortgage Dallas Cowboys Legends Show. Broadcasting live from the Cowboys Club at the Star in Frisco.
And SWBC Mortgage brings you the Cowboys Legends Show. For more than 40 years, SWBC helping people, companies, and financial institutions prepare to win in Texas and across the country. Visit SWBC.com to learn more. Bill Jones with Mickey Spagnola. We've got Darren Woodson, the Cowboys Ring of Honor member, in the house tonight. We've got Smacker Miles with the wireless microphone. So in attendance here at the Cowboys Club at the Star in Frisco, get with Smacker and ask a question of Darren. And Woody, how about this whole complex out here in the Star? And they had the Ring of Honor ceremony where they're on the walkway out there by the Star. Now everybody can walk and see not only Woody but all the Ring of Honor members. That's got to be really special.
It is. And, Jerry never does anything small. Everything's big, to the Jones family. And it's it's an honor to be around so many great players that have played this game. The guys that I played with, and Troy, Mike, Emmett, Charles Haley, and the other guys that, they didn't get. Tony Tolbert was one of the most, for me, was the guy that really inspired me to play the game at a high level back then. Kevin Smith and those guys. But then to see, the guys before us, the Roger Staubachs and the Drew Pearsons and the Bob Lilly, Randy White, Dorsett. There's so many guys that have stayed around and have are part of the Cowboy family that played before me and weren't my teammates, but I still feel like they are my teammates. I feel like they're a part of the fabric of this organization, and the reason why I played as hard as I did is because what those guys had done before me. And I want them to have the same relationship, these guys that, the Bob Lillys, I want them to have the same relationships that, they had with me that they have now with Dak and Jason and these young guys now, man. It was just, this is a family, and the Jones family has done a great job of keeping it that way, keeping it in-house and treating it as such. So a great honor for me to be a part of it. I would have never thought in a million years when I first came to the league that, I would have gotten to this point within this organization, but, it's a great honor for me.
Last week, our guest was Leroy Jordan.
Yeah.
And he said, by the way, tell Woody thanks for bumping him off the career total tackles.
That's not a good thing
place.
for a safety, though. I mean, really? To be the all-time leading tackler as a safety? That's
like
a
linebacker.
That's
it's
a linebacker
cool, right?
job. Yeah, I would have preferred to be the all-time leading interceptor rather than tackler. So.
Hall of Fame voters probably say the same thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
They don't give respect to the tacklers.
Yeah.
Smacker, do we have a question?
Yes,
I think we do.
We do, and it's an awesome question from Jenny.
Hello. There doesn't seem to be many safeties getting big contracts. Is this due to the position being devalued, or is this lack of talent?
Look at Jenny.
Oh, boy, coming with a fastball
there. Jenny, go ahead. Look, I think there's some talent at the safety position. I think you look around the league, and there's some guys that can play at a high level at the position. And look, I've always looked at guys like Eric Berry, who's injured, he's on IR, but a very talented football player, can do a little bit of everything, can cover, and that's how I measure most safeties. How versatile can you be at the safety position? If you're a cover two guy and you're just, and that's what you are, I'm not gonna give you that much love. But if you can cover the slot, cover the tight end, cover running backs out of the backfield, play zone, blitz, and do a little bit of everything.
Cover Jerry Rice.
I mean, if you can do those things, then you deserve that credit. And there's some great ones out there. Earl Thomas is a great safety. Mm-hmm. One of the best that I've ever seen play the game. Cam Chancellor is one of the biggest hitters, best tacklers in space that I've seen in a long time. But Collins up in New York. There's some guys that can really play this game. And I don't think the safety position is lacking in talent. I think the game has changed in a way where they're asked to do a lot more than what they've done in the past. So
it almost seems like there's getting more value in the safety position.
Absolutely.
Now, you can see it in the draft now. Safeties are going higher in the draft, and especially if you got the versatility and you can play as a dime linebacker. I mean,
I look at our very own Byron Jones and what he's able to accomplish. I mean, how many positions is Byron actually playing? Nickelback, if Orlando Scandrick goes down or Nickelback goes down, they shoot him on in there. He's playing. He's covering the slot receiver at times, covering the tight end. I would like to see them play him more at one position.
Right.
Maybe in the middle of the field and let him become that quarterback in the middle of the field. I think he would grow at that position. But they asked him to do a lot, and I look at him and it's familiar grounds because I'm watching him run down on kickoff at the same time, and sometimes I even watch him run down as a forcer on punt team. So, that doesn't go unnoticed. I mean, it really doesn't. I mean, for a guy who played the game to watch a young guy like Byron Jones get that many reps and do that much stuff, man, it doesn't go unnoticed. I mean, he's a valuable, intricate part of this defense. He just doesn't get a lot of credit.
And the thing that's going to be interesting from a salary standpoint is what happens over the next few years as far as safeties are concerned, because they are being valued a little bit more. And so it'll be interesting to see if that will translate into more pay for the safeties.
Yeah, well, I'd like to see 31 get paid.
Yeah,
I really would.
So they've got a couple young safeties, rookies on the. I don't know how much you've got to watch them. As Xavier Woods, and, Chidobe Awuzie is kind of a corner safety. I don't, he's been hurt, but he's pretty versatile.
Yeah.
What do you have you formed an opinion on those?
Yeah, I haven't seen enough of Awuzie to know exactly who he is.
Yeah.
I mean, he just hadn't played a lot. I think Woods is a guy that he's young. He has a tremendous upside. He made a great play the other day on the football as far as the interception, but. He's still a young guy. He has a lot of room to grow. And I think it comes with just seeing things, understanding how teams are going to attack you, what your strengths and weaknesses are, and just having the experience over time. I think he's going to be a very good football player over time. Awuzie, again, is a guy that, tremendous athlete. And I've talked to some of the University of Colorado coaches in the past where he came from, and they said the same thing. Tremendous work ethic, has great feet. Will come up and tackle you, do a little bit of everything. He's just been banged up. He hasn't had a chance to get on the field. But it took me at least 2 to 3 years to really feel myself in the position and know exactly who I was. So, I think the jury's still out. We have to give them time to gel as a young kid and get better.
I'll be interested to see. Awuzie is going to get back on the field this week.
Mm-hmm.
He was ready to go last week, but they said, what? These darn hamstrings, Britt.
Yes.
I don't want you back with me.
Right.
And so they waited.
Britt Brown is what
he's associate trainer. Yeah.
He's the best.
Which he's harder to rehab with than it is to practice.
He's the worst. You would rather practice and play in the game than to deal with Britt Brown. I promise you that. Trust me, I've been there, done that. Man, I did everything. I had a high ankle sprain one time, and Britt, there were no options. Basically, I had to work with Britt for about a week, and I did everything in my power to play to get back on the practice field on Friday. By Friday, I was so wore out he beat me to death. So I tried to get back on it. And he's doing the same thing to these guys. They don't want to be over there. You don't want to be over there in the rehab center. You want to be over there. You want to start practicing with the team because Britt will break you down.
So I'm thinking, this week, how much confidence they have in Awuzie when the Eagles go 3 wide. It's like 4 because of Ernst, right? And I'm thinking that's normally where they use Byron Jones down there. But with him, maybe they put him in the slot. And instead of playing the nickel with 2 linebackers, since there's no Sean Lee probably. Right. Maybe you'd play.
And then Jeff Heath is in the concussion protocol right now.
Maybe you play dime and let him go into one of the slots and take on the tight end.
Yeah, but now be careful on that situation because you know what's going to happen with Philadelphia. And Peterson's going to say, okay, well, you're going to bring all these defensive backs in. We're going to.
Well, did people do that to you?
Well, it's a little different because I played a little linebacker when I was in college.
You were used to it.
And I was 220-something pounds. You talking about Awuzie and these guys? They're $165.
No, he's at least 200.
With some Twizzlers in his back pockets, he's 200. A lot of these guys are smaller guys, so of course, and they don't. I mean, it's a difference when you have a cornerback that doesn't have a safety mentality and doesn't know where he fits in the run game. So when you move guys into the nickel situation or the dime situation, they have to know where their run fits are, because teams like the Philadelphia Eagles or even like New England, they say, okay, you want to bring in these small guys, these cornerback, these nickel guys, we're going to run the ball. We're going to bring it back in and run the ball on football. And Philadelphia has that type of personnel where Zach Ertz can move out wide. He can come back in and become a blocker at the same time. So, it takes a while. These guys are going to have to know where their run fits are if they're going to play that.
Darren Woodson with a rare blend of size and speed. Growing up, or when high school, college, whatever, were there safeties that you looked at and said, or when did it come into, because you played linebacker at Arizona State, when did it even come into your mind that you could be a safety in the NFL?
Well, it came into my mind when Lovie Smith was my coach at Arizona State. And my sophomore year, we were watching the Arizona Cardinals came into Arizona. I think it was about my freshman or actually about my sophomore year in high school. And I remember Chicago Bears coming into town to play the Arizona Cardinals, and I was with Lovie Smith and I was a sophomore in college, and Mark Carrier was one of the better safeties in the league at the time, and he was a young safety with the Chicago Bears. And I remember watching Mark Carrier play, and sitting there with Lovie Smith, and I said, man, he's a really good player. And he said, man, he can't hold your job. I mean, seriously.
Really?
That's what he said to me. He said, you're a much better football player than Mark Carey. And I'm like, no way. Mark Carey's All-American. I mean, he's a great football player. And he says, look, man, you're underestimating your skills. I mean, you can do a lot more than he can do. You can cover, you can do this and this. And that's when it really started to click to think, okay, maybe I can play this game. And it was a shot of confidence for me in a lot of ways. But when I first got here with the Cowboys, as talented as this football team was, when I came in, I felt like I can play this game. And I can play it at a really high level because I didn't feel like there was anyone that could overwhelm me on the football team. So that's the mentality that I came in with. That's the mentality that was basically, if you didn't have that mentality on a Jimmy Johnson football team that you could play this game at a high level, man, you're in trouble. You really were, because the dogs would eat you. and that's what.
How important was it to have someone to speak that into you, that give you that confidence? And did Jimmy have some of that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Jimmy lined me up against Michael Irvin my first week at training camp. Not many camps, because I didn't see Mike. I was a young guy. I didn't see Mike and Alvin Harper during mini camps much, because he had me down there with the tight ends. But when we got to training camp, Dave Campa was saying to me, hey, look, you cover these tight ends well. Let's make you go down here with these wide receivers. And I remember it was in training camp where, most of the time it was the number one corners who would match up with the number one receivers. And Jimmy grabbed me in one of the one-on-one drills and said, hey, cover 88. Mm-hmm. And I thought,
that's Michael Irvin.
I can't say that on radio what I was thinking, but I was like, man, all right. So I got on out there, man, and he caught the ball, of course.
Probably pushed you.
Yeah, probably. But I just felt like, this was a part of me, man. This is, I can make this transition. I can play at this. And Mike did a great job. This is one thing I always talk about, Michael Irvin is this. I remember lining up on Michael Irvin. He catches the ball, and the first thing he says to me is, hey, you know why I was able to get outside of you on this? And we're walking back to the huddle, and he said, look, I leaned you one way, and you didn't stem me. You didn't stem with me. So if this is a situation, man, you need to do this and this. He's coaching me on the way back to the huddle. And to me, I was like, that's a teammate, man. I mean, are we battling each other during the week of practice? Yeah, but at the same time, he knows that at some point, I'm going to have to cover number 80 with the San Francisco 49ers. I'm going to have to cover Ryzen and these other guys. I better make him a better football player. And that's what he did, man. Jay Novacek, another one. Jay Novacek, I got to give him credit for abusing me in practice because he made me a better cover guy.
All right, we continue with Darren Woodson on the Cowboys Legends Show in just a moment.
To the SWBC Mortgage Dallas Cowboys Legends Show, broadcasting live from the Cowboys Club at the Star in Frisco.
And the Cowboys Legends Show continues from the Cowboys Club. Brought to you by SWBC Mortgage. For more than 40 years, SWBC helping people, companies, and financial institutions prepare to win in Texas and across the country. Visit SWBC.com to learn more. Bill Jones with Mickey Spagnola and Darren Woodson, a Cowboys Ring of Honor member, our special guest this week. We could go 2 hours with.
Easy,
we could go 3
right?
hours.
I mean, it's almost over with.
That's right. We got a few minutes left, and we've got Smacker Miles with the wireless microphone.
What a name, Smacker Miles.
Don't you love Smacker?
That's a head coach's daughter's name, Smacker, just in case. Just in case you don't know.
It's Smacker. Is Smacker your given name?
Catherine.
Oh, no. Yes. Smacker's a nickname, but pretty much since birth. Dad gave it to me.
So how did you get Smacker?
I smacked my lips together when I was a newborn.
Oh.
And I was the first child.
Smack, you should have never said that. No, Smack, you should have said the first kid that walked up, little boy that walked up on me.
I smacked him.
You got smacked. That's
a lot of people also think it's because I hit my little brother. So along the same
there
lines.
You go.
But
Keep it that way.
And by the way, her little brothers, one of them plays football at North Carolina and another one at Nebraska, a fullback at Nebraska.
Same way, we have the same agent. Myself, Les, but George Bass represents myself and Les Miles, so that's good, man.
I put that together when you said that earlier. Yeah, Dallas-based. It makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, but I have a question for you. So, from what I've gathered tonight, you're very well-rounded, and I don't know how smooth the transition was, but you have a lot outside of football now. Mm-hmm. I just learned that you do some military stuff, some Make-A-Wish stuff, you do TV. Real estate is completely different, which I know a lot of people have completely different lives after football, but honestly, I'm not familiar with very many of those. I've been more with coaches and athletes and people who haven't made the transition or stayed with TV. So what would your advice be to someone who had an incredible football career, lots to be proud of, but is now making the transition to being out of that and into the next profession?
I would say let your pride go. Start all over again. I think the hardest thing for me was just being the humility that comes along with being, for the longest time it was in high school, I was like one of the better players, so the coaches in the team or in the school protected you from things. In college, it was sort of the same way. Well, you're an All-American, you're this and this and that, and they take care of you, and they always shelter you, and they give you praises, and they love on you. And you get in the NFL, and you make Pro Bowls, and you win Super Bowls, and they say this, oh, we love you, the fans love you, the organization loves you. And then when your career's over with, it's over.
The cheering stops.
The cheering stops. People still love on you, but you still have to get up in the morning and do something. And I've told Mick and I were sitting here and we were talking about it before, and I've known Mick for the longest time. You talk about, just like friends. We become friends over the years, but for me to have this conversation, he asked me, before the show started, and I said, look, man, I'm bad with idle time. I mean, my mom used to say the idle time's the devil's workshop. Mm-hmm. And if your feet don't get up in the morning at 5 a.m., 6 a.m., and your feet don't hit the ground and you're not doing something, it's not a good day. The devil's won. She said, I always say the devil's won. So I've held on to that forever. And I always felt like, you have to have humility to start all over again, whether it be in real estate, whether it be, the one of the hardest things I've ever done was ESPN because I've never controlled an interview or I've never been in a situation where I had to talk to the camera by myself, no one else in the room, and I had to give an instant analysis, and I just didn't have any experience. So there was a lot of studying, a lot of watching myself on tape, taking constructive criticism from friends, from people I didn't even know that were critical of me on being on air and fumbling around and all. You had to take all that in and continue to grow, and that's what I did. I think it's I learned that from my mother. Just you take on the criticism and you grow as a person.
You know what? That's great for you don't have to be an athlete, and that's great advice. Mm-hmm. I mean, for people, and there's so many people who lose their jobs for whatever reason.
Yeah.
And you got to make a change.
And the birds are going to chirp the next day.
Yeah,
regardless.
That's right.
Newspaper goes out of business.
Right.
And somebody said,
you
maybe
might have to do some
TV.
Exactly.
You might have to do something totally different than you ever expected to do.
You better be able to morph.
I can remember doing just what you were talking about the first time, and I was doing it at Channel 4 after games.
Yeah.
And so I'd go in there and look at the camera. And all of a sudden, Paul Crane, God bless him, he worked at CNN. Yeah. He's in the background, and he's waving at me, and he's yelling, blink. It's like, you mean I got to think about what I'm saying, look at the camera, and blink, too?
Oh, yeah.
And not look petrified?
Yeah. It makes sense, and it was the hardest thing.
I can tell you.
I was scared to watch it afterwards.
I agreed.
Right?
And you have to watch it.
Right, you do.
And I sucked. And I'll tell people all the time, when I first got on air, the first day I got on air is the first day Jerry Rice retired as a football player. That was my first day. And they asked me to do an IA, an instant analysis. Sit in the camera by yourself, give us 30 seconds on Jerry Rice and who he was. And we did 60 takes later.
You would have rather covered Jerry Rice, right?
I would rather cover it, exactly. But it's a humbling experience, but you got to figure it out. And if you don't work hard at it, you'll never get there.
See, and Bill was trained that way, so it came.
Yeah, no, it's a gift.
No, you know what? My first TV job in Lubbock, Texas, it took me 6 months before I worked up the courage to look at myself on TV.
Oh man,
to look at a tape.
Yeah,
I had a hard time just staring in the camera because there was no one there.
Yes.
We'd go on the road and they set me up in the network or the affiliate studio. The guy would put the camera on it, and it's like, where are you going?
Yeah,
it's like I got no one to talk to.
Set me up,
Yeah, and then I've just got a camera.
Tee me up at least. Give me something. Yeah.
Just a couple minutes left here on the Cowboys Legend Show with Darren Woodson. Again, 25-year reunion at the game on Sunday night. It is Sunday Night Football against the Philadelphia Eagles. There'll be a pregame ceremony, which you'll be able to watch on DallasCowboys.com. It'll be streamed live. And also the halftime ceremony where Jerry Jones will receive his Hall of Fame ring. It should be a very special night. But what would really make it a special night is if the Cowboys can beat the Philadelphia Eagles. Right, Woody?
And I think that's the key. I mean, they have to find a way to be ultimately focused because, the Eagles are a very good football team. And I know they had some injuries with Hicks at the linebacker position and Peters at the left tackle position, but this is a very well-coached football team. Carson Wentz is, in my opinion, is the MVP of the league at this thus far moving forward. And this team has a swagger and a confidence. The Eagles have a swagger and a confidence about them that they can go on the road and win anywhere. And rightfully so for what they've done in the last 9 weeks. But this is going to be a tough matchup, and the Cowboys are going to have to find a way defensively to create some turnovers and offensively take some shots down the field because that's the weakness. If there's one weakness with the Philadelphia Eagles, it's on the outside. You just have to have time to throw the football.
Which I was going to bring up.
Yeah, you got to have time.
Can't have 8 sacks.
No,
right?
the O-line. Yeah.
It certainly would help if Tyron Smith could.
Oh, I would love to. Would love to see. Did we all miss Tyron Smith?
You understand
how important he is? Yeah.
And Sean Lee, by the way.
That's another one. I mean, he's the quarterback of the defense, and without Sean Lee, you see who this defense is without their leader. They're half the defense without Sean.
And not to mention Ezekiel Elliott and the kicker Dan Bailey, by the way.
That's right. There's some Pro Bowlers in that group you just mentioned. Darren, it's been great having you here on the Cowboys Legend Show. Enjoy your weekend at the stadium. Mickey, who do we got next week?
Next week we have. So it's the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. It's Danny White.
Danny White on Wednesday night here. And we thank you for joining us for the Cowboys Legend Show.